Hi, this is gonna be a daily experience video. Um, as I said, these days, um, somehow my well-used methods of how to spend time with guys start to disappear. I really loved my hours in the morning that I spent with God and sometimes at nights and I was really clinging to them. And now I'm in a new life situation and I couldn't do it. And I was upset about it. Like, I was like, now I'm gonna restore that and I'm gonna be harsh about it. And God said, like, no need to. You've learned what you had to learn in that season when you were really strict about it. Now I have new ideas how to spend time with me. And I was like, oh, then what? Like, my whole day is gonna just flow away without like paying any attention to you, and you know how bad it affects me. And he was like, I know, and it's gonna be just fine. And nowadays I just expect um, that God will somehow give me time during the day somehow. um, and sometimes it's just watching the sunset, or while waiting for someone, or while waiting things to upload or download. And these are the time when I have to like now really appreciate the time, and also like recognize like, oh, this is not about like my this time is about peace now, and I don't have to feel it with my mind chit chat and planning things for the 11th time and things like that, because I'm pretty much like that, like planning things over and over again. And yes, this time is not about answering new messages, this time is about like a gift to spend time with God. And I really need to be aware of it these days, because it's not like, oh, I will have time at night and I will have time in the morning. So now it doesn't matter. Now every little time matters, and it's good because I appreciate it more. Um, and what I really have to learn in with this method is how not to flee from God, how not to run away. Actually, I don't spend that much less time with God now that I don't really cling to my strict hours. Um, so the amount of like quality time when I really give attention to Him, I don't think it decreased, but it feels very unstable that I don't have it in a way I used to. And because I got this new freedom that like, oh yeah, I don't have to keep it, sometimes there were times when I just started to run away from God. Like, even if I had the little time, I didn't use it to be with God. And now I had to learn that, oh, now is the time of salvation. Like, if you hear the call of God, do not harden your heart. Like, this is if you have this now moment with God, like, don't do anything else, don't run away, just enjoy it. So I really have to pay it. Like, this great freedom gives me great freedom to run away from God as well. And I have to be quite aware when my heart turns into and shifts into fleeing from God. Like, let's watch another video, let's clean another room, let's do this instead, and just pushing myself away from like silence and rest and opening up myself to God. And the funny thing is that the more you flee from God, the more you want to flee from Him. And sometimes one time I had to realize like 3 more days and I won't even remember what it feels like to be with God. The 3 more days of like running away from Him and closing myself from Him is how far away I am from forgetting what living with Him feels like. Of course I didn't do that, but sometimes I came to the point when it was like hard to turn myself back towards Him. Like it was uncomfortable because I started to like my fleeing state, my running away state. And nowadays I became aware of it. Like if I start to turn away and it feels like a bad idea to be with God, this is exactly when I need to spend time with God. Like, and not like a large amount of time. It's not like burning the pancake because you stop for 2 hours while frying them. It's like sometimes it's just like 10 seconds, like I'm here, you are here, I'm open to you. My whole life is happening inside your presence. And sometimes it's about stopping what you're doing. Not because what you do is against the presence of God, as I believed for a long time, but it's easier to hide behind activities. So when you want to run away from God, activities are a good bush you can hide behind when God is coming down to have a walk with you at the cool of the day. So anything can be a bush to hide away from God, but activities make really good bushes. So when you are in silence, like it's much harder. It's uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable for a reason. There is no way to flee from Him. I really love like music. It really helps me like open myself up to God. It's my thing, and it doesn't depend on the way or your method. You can use whatever you want. It just works for me. And still, music can also provide a bush to hide from God, like the nice memories, the nice melody, the things it makes you remember of, nice feelings, and none of them are bad. It's just like sometimes, even if it's uncomfortable for me, and even if it's not the easiest way for me to connect with God, I just force myself to spend time in complete silence because it takes away all the options to flee from God. And it is uncomfortable and it is good. You know you started to flee from God when the idea of turning towards Him feels like uncomfortable. Like it's like, it's not a good idea, let me do something else. This is exactly when you need to turn towards Him. It's not necessarily stopping what you do, it might be, but it's like an inner shift. Sometimes you have to stop what you're doing to realize that what you're doing is actually happening in the presence of God. So I don't want to flee from you to do this. So I stop and realize like, oh, I'm in you. You're not far. My whole life is happening in your presence. The silly thing I'm doing is happening in your presence. Okay, I can continue doing it now with the awareness that it is an expression of my communion with God, not the expression of my fleeing from him. So it's a more like an inner shift, but sometimes literally dropping everything also helps. Um, it's up to the situation. I think for quite a while, dropping everything actually is more helpful. Or dropping everything just for a short time, like I'm working on my laptop and I just look outside, just see the trees, and it's like, yeah, my little life and email answering ideas, yeah, they are all happening in you. And it's so good that they are all happening in you. And I just continue doing it, knowing that it is happening in him. So sometimes you have to stop yourself from doing things in order to make you realize that you can do them and be completely aware of the presence of God. Which is funny. So it's just my story, what's going on with me right now, that I quit this strict hours of spending time with God in the morning. I would highly recommend strict hours to anyone who is not used to spending time with God. It takes a little bit of time till you get used to and you learn to be aware of God. And it helps when you are strict about it for a while, I think. Like for a couple of months or years. But there are no rules for anything, so do whatever you feel like doing. I just say it worked for me, and now it works for me that I don't keep those strict times, and it still works, and I still find the time with God and still find the occasions, but I need to be more aware of my turning away. Because when I had those strict times, I was like, oh yeah, I'm fleeing a little bit from God, but tomorrow morning I have to be with him anyway, so I have to return, and and fleeing will be over. But I know that now I don't have that large time to delay my returning to. So and I have to like catch my mind, like, oh, my little mind really wants to flee. No, it doesn't help you return. So it's like catching it. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It's like after days or weeks or months of fleeing from God, it feels so unnatural to return. It feels so strange. And I know friends that I ministered with for years, they no longer remember what it feels like to be with God. Because they experienced some pain and disappointment, and they started to flee, and they don't know how to stop fleeing. And I know I have some pains, and some terrible things do happen when you do ministry. And disappointments happen for sure, and they sometimes encourage you to like, oh, not now, like you need some space, you need to digest these things. And it's true, but God helps you the most. Like if you come to your peace, it helps you the most to like digest things. And even like do trauma work or anything, like it's worth stopping the fleeing, no matter what situation you have in your life. So now it's more important for me to catch myself, and even if you still do have that like large time that you cling to, which I will return to sometime, maybe. It still helps you if you don't treat your fleeing from God as like, oh yeah, it's gonna be restored the next time I spend a lot of time with God, but like, oh, I stop it now. So yeah, this new season in my life really makes me appreciate the time I have with God, but it also makes me be more aware when it's time to return. Yeah, this is it. You're loved. Kisses to you.